Okay, Melissa, we might leave that there for the moment, because while that media conference has been underway at Parliament House, the Prime Minister has actually been speaking at the University of Canberra. Let's take a listen to what she's had to say.
You already know.
Well, this report is a peer-reviewed work by scientists, and it's confirming that climate change is real. Of course it's building on past work that's been available from climate scientists. And that work is verifying to Australians climate change is real. It has real effects that we can observe now and effects that we can extrapolate into the future, effects about our planet warming, about sea levels rising, about ocean acidity increasing, about impacts on the Great Barrier Reef. Of course, the scientists who have put this together have drawn together the most recent information, and that's very welcome. But the central premise of the report was already known to government, and that's why we determined to price carbon. The central premise is climate change is real, and to address climate change we need to cut carbon pollution.
Prime Minister, just on the young people that you have just met, there are various critics of your budget in various places, the opposition, whatever. When you meet people such as those that you met today, does it sort of reinforce in your mind your personal commitment to equality of education, which is what you've been on about since ever you've been in government? And does it confirm also for you that when you're running a budget, you need to make choices, and this is the choice you're making?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've been determined across my life, including my life in the Australian Parliament, to make a difference for opportunity and for education. I know what that's like from my own personal experience. I know what it's like to get a go and to get to go to university. I wouldn't have gone to university if it hadn't been for the reforms of the Whitlam government. We met today some students who are getting the benefits of the reforms that we are delivering. Reforms to grow the number of students who get a chance at university, reforms to grow the number of students from low socioeconomic backgrounds who get a chance at university. At the moment, or in the past, they've all too frequently missed out. We are growing the numbers of poor kids who get a chance. That is, poor kids who have got all of the wherewithal to get a university education but were locked out of the gates of universities simply because of their family background. We're changing that. And we're changing the participation of rural and regional students. Now, a lot is said about that, but the figures don't lie. Under the Howard government, the participation of rural and regional kids in university was going down. Now it's coming back up. So our reforms, delivering. And this is a good example of how reforms to create opportunity can make a real life difference for Australians, and the recent budget brings more of those reforms.
What does it say to you about the need to approach it from the school end as well? Because if the kids from disadvantaged backgrounds don't apply or can't get through school to a point where they can get into an institution, then they can't. So what are you doing at the school level about improving their access?
Well, that's a very important point, and we are delivering more resources to schools than ever before, and we are driving a huge reform agenda in schools, a reform agenda about transparency, about teacher quality, about attendance, about literacy and numeracy, about aspiration and a culture of aspiration and high expectations. This is the reform agenda we're driving for every child in every school. We've also deliberately made a stream of money that flows to universities contingent on them doing good work for low SES students. And many universities are, as a result, buddying up with schools, buddying up with disadvantaged schools so they can take university professors, students into those disadvantaged schools, and they can show them that university isn't something that's beyond their reckoning or their life experience. University is something that's come to them and they should think about as a choice.
Prime Minister, just on the mining tax, have you or the Treasurer had any conversations with Colin Barnesh over the weekend about the impasse there?
No, I haven't.
Prime Minister, the Commission's recommendations would appear to suggest that a higher carbon price is needed to force industry to move to more energy-efficient production measures. Does this mean that the government would think of a carbon price closer to $30, if not $40?
Well, nice try, but we will announce the carbon price and the design of the scheme in the middle of the year, as announced.
How are your negotiations going with the Greens, though?
Well, we'll announce the carbon price and the design of the scheme in the middle of the year. And let's just be clear, the purpose of carbon pricing is, of course, to drive change, to cut carbon pollution, to have businesses innovate to cut carbon pollution. This is about the 1,000 biggest polluters, the businesses that create the most pollution that they currently put into the atmosphere for nothing, paying a price. And if they pay that price, they will innovate and change. They will cut carbon pollution. That's what the scheme is designed to do. We are, of course, still consulting with business and other stakeholders to get the design of the scheme right, and all of the details will be available in the middle of the year. In the meantime, can I just offer these words of counsel? Anybody who's speculating about what the price is or what the price impacts are likely to be is simply making figures up. And anybody who's speculating about those things tends not to also explain that there will be generous assistance to Australian households.
Prime Minister, is it starting to get frustrating for you in a political sense with the fact that we do have to wait until July or whenever it is for the details to come out? Because I think even as we speak, your opponent, Tony Abbott's out someplace in Queanbeyan and presumably bashing you again about this. Must be frustrating.
And I trust any claims made have a appropriately critical and sceptical eye run over them, because if he uses a dollar figure, he's making it up. And if he's at a business which isn't amongst the 1,000 biggest polluters in the country, well, I hope people ask him about that as well. And they might also ask him about Malcolm Turnbull's belling the cat last week, that of course, because Tony Abbott's a climate change sceptic, he's designed a scheme that won't work, but which will be very costly for Australian taxpayers. I'm very happy to keep explaining climate change and carbon pricing, and in part, apart from celebrating today with some great young Australians about the opportunities in Australian universities today, of course today with the Climate Commission report is a day on which people will be talking about and thinking about climate change. It's real. It's here. It's making a difference to Australia. It will make a bigger difference in the future. We have to cut carbon pollution, and to get that done, we have to start cutting carbon pollution through making a decision this year and bringing it into effect next year. What the report makes clear is if the later you start, the harder it is going to be to cut carbon pollution by the amount we need.
Prime Minister,
just one more follow-up question about the mining tax.
Sure, we'll just come over here first.
The Commission was tasked with building a consensus on the issue of climate change and the fact that it was real. You say that you already knew that those were the facts. Do you think this report is going to do it? And what do you say to the critics of the report who say it's not worth the paper that the government paid for?
This is a report from scientists who have gone and put a report together which is peer-reviewed. Now, to anybody who says, well, they've got a better view of the science than the scientists who wrote this report, then I trust they submit any claim they're making to the same kind of rigour. These are climate scientists. We don't have time. The point I made on the weekend, we don't have time for false claims in this debate. The science is in. Climate change is real. The science is clear. Carbon pollution, man-made carbon pollution, is making a difference to our planet and our climate. We don't have time for people who and don't submit their claims to proper scrutiny to try and distort this debate. We've got to get on with the job of cutting carbon pollution and having a rational debate about it.
Will the report build a consensus, do you believe?
I think people always want to see work from experts. This is work from experts. And of course the Climate Commission is also travelling around the country, meeting with local communities, so people have the opportunity face to face to talk to them about the science and to ask them any questions that may be on their mind. I mean, let's be clear, this is of course not the first report about climate change. Climate change has been the subject of scientific inquiry and report for decades now. That's why politicians in the past like Margaret Thatcher were persuaded that climate change was real. This does bring together the most recent information. It's a very valuable contribution as a result, and I'd say that it's very important for people to look at it and to digest it, and people who want to make claims about climate science should look at this report and shouldn't be trying to distract people with false claims. Now, I know, for example, Dennis Jensen, the Liberal Party members, is out today with his climate change denial. Well, that might be something that Tony Abbott agrees with. We understand that because Malcolm Turnbull says his design scheme won't work, but this is the credentialed scientific work in front of us now.
I'm just wondering what the next stage of negotiations is for your government with the West Australian government over the mining tax impasse.
Well, as we've made clear, the royalties increase that Premier Barnett has made, we are concerned about that. Of course, I have regular meetings and discussions with Western Australia about a whole range of issues, about health, about education, about prospects for the economy, about mining as well. So I anticipate this will be the subject of discussion too.
Do you endorse everything in the climate change report? Do you endorse it totally?
I'm not a climate scientist, and that I think is actually a question that leads us to thinking about how this debate should be conducted. If a doctor said to me that after medical research, if a doctor came into my office and said something causes cancer and we can make a difference to it, then I would accept it. When I first met Ian Fraser and he told me he had a cervical cancer vaccine that could cut the rates of cervical cancer for women and girls, I didn't pretend to myself that I knew enough about cancer to second guess whether what he was telling me was right. I accepted it. He was right. He's a scientist. We've got climate scientists here who are telling us exactly the same about the nature of global warming and the climate of our planet. I am not in a position to second guess what they say. We need to accept the science. And our society in the past has accepted the science. We accepted that smoking caused cancer. That's why we acted on cigarettes. We've accepted medical inventions and we've integrated them into the way that we do things. Vaccines, a fantastic example. Why do we vaccinate kids? Because we know the science is right. And here we are today, good credentialed science telling us our climate is changing and what the effects of it are. Of course, we've got to act on it. And the cheapest and most efficient way of acting on it is to price carbon. We can't let this debate be waylaid by people who don't accept the science. No one in this country would have said it was acceptable to not fund Ian Fraser's cervical cancer vaccine because a radio personality thought that it wasn't going to be any good. No one would have accepted that. Well, the same applies to this debate.
Is Tim Flannery a climate scientist? Or is he a paleontologist?
Well, Will Stephen, this, as Tim Flannery has said consistently and publicly, and as he said to me today, this has been put together by the climate scientists on the Commission and it's been peer reviewed. Thank you.
So that's the Prime Minister Julia Gillard speaking there at the University of Canberra, welcoming that report she's received this morning from her Climate Commission. She says the report confirms climate change is real and it's happening now. No doubt we'll hear from the Coalition on this report later today.